Are you afraid to be disappointed, or should you be afraid to be unalive? This was a thought that I had, you know, I have actually very often, especially when I speak to people who are not taking any chances in life, who just go through the motions, etc. And I really wanted to record a podcast about this. So, when you have done shadow work with me, your so-called regular struggles are disappearing. So, here's what happens. My clients come to me, they say, I always procrastinate, or I am a perfectionist, or I don't think that I'm good enough, or I don't charge my high prices. Okay, yes. So we work on that very specifically. And then quite soon, then they realize like, oh, we fixed it now. And what now? And this realization could actually leave quite an empty feeling. I see that because I see people think, oh, okay, this was very easy. And then maybe also some regret. Why didn't I do this earlier? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, sure, whatever. It doesn't matter. Right now was the best time to do it. So don't worry about that. You were just not ready for it. And it wouldn't have happened anyway. So I believe those things, right? So what happens to them is that the road is now free to do what they are truly meant to do. And so not so what you're not going to have to do is to follow what you inherited, because that's what many people do, even though they won't admit it. Many people's loyalties lie within the generation before them, and the little programming that you got throughout your entire childhood. And like it or not, you're still patterned by that. What we're doing in my coaching, we're looking at your calling. What is it that you need to do in this life, in the time that you have? You don't know how long you have. What is it that you need to do? And I believe the soul is the connection we make through what we experience, the stories we tell ourselves, the lines we see, and the reasons of our behavior are formed by the soul and the logic of what we have experienced. So what your soul believes to be true. This is also why sometimes, I don't know, you get into an accident and you're thinking, oh, why does it happen to me? But actually many good things happen after that, right? I'm not saying that all accidents are good, absolutely not. But most of the time, when you speak to people who have had quite a traumatizing experience, they say, oh, I'm actually very happy about this. One of the things that happened to me, I was assaulted by a delivery person in my own home. Me and my husband were. And we moved. We were already planning to move. And actually, this really sped things up. And we were, we were handling the situation really from a complete shock, literal shock. After a traumatic experience, when you're a grown-up, you need 6 weeks to recover. Well, it took us 6 weeks to move to another completely different place. And well, if you know a little bit about the housing market, it's actually quite impossible, but we made it happen. Why? Because of adrenaline, and also because that happened. I'm not saying it was good, because we do still have some scars from the experience, but for me, at least, it was, I can only speak for myself. My husband, yeah, he should be a guest maybe on the show once. He should speak for himself, but it's really been, in the end, good for me. When you are fully living your soul mission, you have an aligned life. This is also why you should never copy someone else. This is also why you should never have the desire to have a life of someone else. This is also why you should never be too much of a fangirl of somebody else. So this might feel like when you feel like there's an outside power directing your moves, and you're not really doing it on your own. That's when you're on a soul mission. And as a shadow business coach, I really want to urge you to never stop looking for your soul's mission. Okay. All right, Sarah. Yes, I understand it now. Blah, blah, blah. How do I actually get to that point? So, your soul mission is speaking to you through your shadows. And these can also be called the whispers in your life. And I once recorded a podcast on this when I spoke no, I didn't speak to her. I listened to an Oprah podcast, which was very, very inspiring to me. And she spoke about how sometimes an attack can really feel like, I didn't see that coming. But then she says, yes, but you haven't heard the whispers. And that was probably also what happened to us as well, because we were not having that aligned life back in Amsterdam. And you didn't hear the whispers. That's what she's saying. And or when people, apply for a job, and then nobody is accepting them, yes, because they're meant to start a business. And so the whispers are the little clues that life gives you. So if you get rejection after rejection, you have to think about, okay, so what is this teaching me instead of fighting it? Same thing with your shadows. If you are acting in a certain way when you hear somebody say something, blah, I don't know exactly what it would be, but for instance, if somebody is really triggered, okay, let's just use this example. So when somebody's really triggering you by saying something about their personal life and you're really being triggered by it, that's your shadow. And what means triggered is that your heartbeat is racing, you're getting very angry, and you're thinking, ugh, this person doesn't believe that or doesn't deserve that. That's your shadow. So if it's really also in the things that people around you tell you between the lines, it is also things that your body will tell you loud and clear. And this is all really throughout my personal experience. I think if I think about my life, I think I'm living it fully. So I remember I'm 40 years old now. I remember when I was turning 30, I'm not sure if I ever shared this on the podcast, but when I was turning 30, I remember I was on my bicycle. Yes, because it was a very cold day, obviously, because I'm born February 17th. And it's always freezing that day. This is also one of the reasons why I went to Rome for my birthday. And it was actually perfect weather, but this year, but I was thinking, oh no, I don't want to be in the frost anymore. Also, when I was born, it was freezing. I could look this up, but my mother said it was freezing 12 degrees. Not really sure if that's true. But anyway, it was a very cold. And this was also the year where there was the natural ice skating event in the Netherlands, which is called the Elfstedentocht. Anyway, so it was freezing, and I was on my bicycle. Yes, and my mother called me, or I called my mother, and I remember saying to her, I was 30 years old, and I said, "Well, you know what? What I love so much about this age right now and how I feel is that I thought I can die now. It's fine. I have lived my life completely and fully." And I didn't know back then, but through the past 10 years, I was actually, I remember saying that to my mother. I was thinking also, I said it, and then I was thinking, oh, is this actually true? Yes, it is true. And it is still true. So I think life is meant to be lived completely, fully. And so also, for instance, in my case, we don't have children, and you can still live a very full life without having children and also feel very full. Let me just be very clear about that, because some people think that having children is the only way to get a full life. Wrong. That's absolutely not the case. But so, what people told me between the lines, what my body was telling me, I had chronic pain when I was 36, I think, 35, 36. Now it's gone. So it's just very, and why? Because I had to do this shadow work myself, right? I cannot be a shadow business coach when I'm not, and when I have not done that. So if things don't go your way, look for something else until it feels good. And I think it really is the only way to live your life. And also, isn't that what life is meant to do? It is meant to be lived. That's what I feel. Okay, so what happens when you work with me? You have found your shadows and you get to live that aligned life. What happens? You first, but also the people around you will thank you for it. Maybe not saying thank you, but you will see it. You will see it in their faces, in their expressions. And they will also take inspiration from the courage that you have and not to accept that what was given to them, but to actually look for what they desire. That's what I've seen as well. And so most people in life are afraid to be disappointed. Well, I actually think they should be afraid to be unalive. So I want this podcast to be the next step of something beautiful in your life, because it is there. There is nothing wrong with wanting the best life. It is, I think, in fact, your only duty. And working with me helps you get to the true core of who you are. I am convinced. I see it with my clients all the time. And you can work with me, you can apply to work with me if you want to have this true desired life, this soul mission life, then you know what to do. Thank you so much for listening, and see you again next week for another episode of the Shadow Business Podcast. I wish you a happy day. Don't forget to rate the show, and see you soon. Bye.